Hello everyone, it is the Northwoods Fairy Cat, and today I'm going to be doing, once again, Goosebumps, Series 2000. This is backwards to you, but you can kind of see there's the spider, and it is called Along Came a Spider. And we are halfway through the book. This is part 3. I want to get this book done. I don't know if I'll get it done in one sitting. I also have my fluffy mic guard because it seems to tune out some of the other sounds. This mic is super sensitive. Alright, so let's get right into it, okay? We are on chapter 17. Alright, so a few nights later, Amy and I were hunched over my dining room table doing homework. Amy was working on math problems, moving her lips as she added and subtracted. I was writing an essay about Aaron Burr. Well, actually I was copying some of it from an encyclopedia when the doorbell buzzed. I broke the point of my pencil. I knew who it was. I could tell by the buzz it was Travis and Brad, coming to test me, to terrify me. Take it easy, Craig, I told myself. You're shaking already, and you don't even know what they planned for you. Pretend you're brave. Big words. Who was I kidding? Amy followed me to the front door. I pulled it open. Brad stepped in, wearing a blue down jacket and a wool ski hat. It's pretty cold out there, he explained. He tugged off the hat and glanced around nervously. I'm sorry about this, Craig, he murmured, avoiding my eyes. Really? Oh, sure. Amy rolled her eyes. You're just trying to frighten him, Brad, but it isn't going to work. No, I mean it, Brad insisted. I think Travis went too far this time. I tried to argue with him, but he wouldn't listen. He really wants to win this bet. Those words sent chills down my back. I could feel my knees start to buckle up. I grabbed the back of the couch for support. Maybe I should concede, I thought. Give up now before things get out of control. I just wanted to say that I'm sorry in advance, Brad said solemnly, eyes on the floor. I gulped. The only ones who will be sorry are you and Travis and your buddies, Amy insisted. Because after tonight is over, you'll owe us $60. We'll see, Brad murmured. He motioned to the door. Get your coats and follow me. We stopped out into a cold, windy October night. Dead leaves swirled in wind circles over the lawns. Nearly bare trees creaked and groaned. I felt a few cold drops of rain on my forehead. So, I zipped my black down parka and pulled the hood up over my head. We turned the corner, waited for nearly an empty city bus to rumble past, then made our way toward town. I knew where we were going. Travis already hinted about it. I remembered the gleeful smirk on his freckled face when he mentioned it. Sure enough, we crept up behind the low hedge at the back of the parking lot. A yellow spotlight lit up the wooden sign in front of the long, dark, shingled building. The sign read Shady Rest, the funeral parlor, and that Travis's dad owned. I shivered. Were there dead bodies in there? Actual corpses? Of course there are, Craig. He answered my own dumb question. It's a funeral parlor, right? I shoved my hands deep into my coat pockets. I hoped Amy couldn't see me shivering. Hey, here's the superhero, David greeted me with a slap on the back. Gus and Frankie nodded solemnly. Where's Travis? Amy demanded. A gust of wind made the long hedge wriggle like a snake. The wind blew the hood back onto my shoulders. I felt another cold raindrop on my forehead and Travis got caught. Brad replied, "Caught?" I cried. Brad nodded. His parents caught him sneaking out. He's going to miss all the fun. David smirked. Some fun, I thought bitterly. But don't worry, Craig, David continued. We'll give Travis a full report about how you ran away screaming. You're the ones who will scream, Amy insisted, when you have to pay us the bet money. I turned and I stared at the funeral parlor. It was a plain, one-story shingled building, but it suddenly looked to me like one of those dark, evil castles in a horror movie. I pictured rows of black coffins inside, and dead bodies stretched out on metal tables, and green corpses staggering around groaning, blank, lifeless eyes rolling around in their decaying heads, coffins' lids pushing up, bony hands poking out. Craig, stop, I ordered myself. Stop imagining. I swallowed hard and turned to Brad. What do I have to do? I asked. Chapter 18. Brad and the three boys stared at me. David started to giggle. Gus and Frankie laughed too. Cruel, cold laughter. Brad's expression remained solemn. This wasn't my idea, he murmured. Don't pay any attention to them, Amy warned me. Sorry about my dog. Sorry about my dog. I had to put her outside. She was kind of making a lot of noise. So anyways, don't pay any attention to them, Amy warned me. They think they can scare you. They're scaring me, I thought. They're scaring me, and I don't even know why yet. Amy turned to Brad. Why don't you just give up now? Craig can't be scared by anything. We'll see, Brad replied. He pointed to the funeral parlor. See that back window, Craig? I peered over the hedge at the building, totally dark, all the windows and doors dark. The only light was the spotlight beaming down on the Shady Rest sign at the front of the empty parking lot. See the window I'm pointing to? Brad repeated. I nodded. That's the window you'll go in, he said. Huh? Go in? I gasped. Go in? Brad nodded. The other boys laughed. Isn't that illegal? I asked, trying to keep my voice low and steady, trying to desperately sound calm. Does Travis's dad know about this? Of course not, Brad replied. David shook his head. If Travis's dad knew, he'd bury us all. Gus and Frankie thought that was a riot. They burst out laughing and slapped David high fives. Shh, quiet guys, Brad warned. We don't want to get caught before Craig goes inside. Just tell him what he has to do, Amy said. I'm impatient. He'll do it. You'll pay us the money, and then we can get out of here. It's cold. It's real simple, Brad said, putting a hand on the shoulder of my coat. He pointed again to the narrow window at the back of the building. Craig, you slide up the window. Brad instructed. You climb inside. You open up the first coffin you find, and you lie inside it. But, I gasped. That's all? Amy cried. That's all he has to do? This is too easy. You guys are giving your money away. Amy, please, I started to beg. How? I stammered. How? Can't you think of anything challenging, Amy cried to Brad. Can't you think of something a little bit scary? How will you know if I do it? I finally choked out. Easy, Brad replied. We'll be watching. We'll be watching your every move. From that back window. But if we get caught, I demanded. We won't, Brad replied. There's no one around, Craig. Only dead people. You're not afraid of dead people, are you, Craig? David asked, grinning. Yes, I answered to myself. Yes, of course I am. I've never seen a dead person before. I've never even seen a coffin before, let alone climbed into one. A blast of wind made the hedge shiver. Cold raindrops splashed my forehead, shivering. I pulled the hood back over my hair. Go do it, Craig, Amy urged. Let's get it over with. These guys are a waste of time. I gazed across the dark parking lot. Could I do it? Could I sneak into the funeral parlor and lie down in a coffin? As I huddled behind the hedge, the building seemed a mile away. My legs are shaking too hard, I told myself. I can't even walk that far. Just tell them the truth, Craig, I thought. Tell them you're the biggest chicken that ever clucked. Tell them it's a big mistake. You're not brave. You've never been brave. Amy will be upset, but she will get over it in a year or two. But then there's like the $60 bet. I can pay it. Where will I get that kind of money? You have no choice, Greg. You have to do it. Okay, here goes, I said. I pulled the hood down over my forehead, leaning into the wind. I pushed through a split in the hedge and stepped into a parking lot. I was halfway across the lot when a blindingly bright light swept over me. Caught. Chapter 19. I froze as the light rolled over me. Shielding my eyes, I turned to the street and saw a dark van pulling into the driveway to the funeral parlor. My heart pounding, I staggered back, turned, and dove for safety of the hedge. Who's that? I asked Brad breathlessly. He shrugged. We all ducked low behind the shivering hedge and watched two white uniformed men climbed out of the van. They pulled open the back door, then struggling and groaning, they lifted out a long black plastic bag. A body bag. Was there a body inside the bag? We watched in silence as they vanished around the other side of the building, carrying their heavy load. A late delivery, Amy whispered. I saw Brad shiver. Gus and Frankie got very quiet. I realized I'd been holding my breath the whole time. My lungs ached. They felt about to burst. I let the air out in a long whoosh. Did you see? I was almost caught, I murmured. That was a close call. Do you want to quit? David demanded. Want to give up? Too scared to go in? Craig? Gus chimed in. Of course he isn't scared, Amy answered for me. He's going in as soon as they leave. I shoved my hands deeper into my parka pockets. I tried to hide my face under the hood. I didn't want anyone to see how terrified I was. The lights flashed on in the side windows of the funeral parlor. An eerie green light filled the curtained windows. A minute or so later, the light went out. The two men returned to the van. They slammed the back door shut, climbed into the front, and drove away. I turned and saw everyone staring at me. I'm going, I murmured. Once again, I squeezed through the opening to the hedge and started to cross the parking lot. The others followed close behind. Our shoes scraped the damp pavement. Behind the building, bare trees swayed and shook as if waving us away. A narrow strip of grass led to the back of the funeral parlor. My shoes sank into the wet ground, making a soft squish with every step. The blood pulsed at my temples as I reached the back window. I tried to peer through the glass, but curtains blocked the view. Besides, it was too dark to see inside anything. Go ahead, open the window, Brad urged. His voice came out shrill and breathless. He sounded frightened too. Raindrops had spattered the window pane. I reached both hands to the wooden frame and pushed. The window slid up easily. A gust of wind made the curtains billow like two filmy ghosts. I leaned over the window ledge and peered inside. Where was the dead body? Those guys brought in? I couldn't see a thing. A sharp, sour smell made me hold my breath. What stinks? I blurted out. Corpses, David replied, his back pressed against the shingled wall. Decaying, rotting corpses. Don't listen to him. It's formaldehyde, Amy said. You know, the stuff they use to embalm the corpses. Yuck! I took a deep breath through my mouth. The sour smell made my stomach churn. Do you want to quit? Brad asked. I felt his hand on my shoulder of my parka. Are you afraid? Want to give up? Just say the word. No way, Amy cried. Craig doesn't know the word afraid. He's going in. She turned to me. Want a boost? No, I replied quickly. I raised both hands to the window ledge. I'll just climb in. I leaned into the open window. The silky curtains billowed against my face. I started to hoist myself up. Remember, the first coffin you see, Brad. Reminded. Open it up and climb in. We'll be watching, David added. Wish I brought my camera, Gus chimed in. I've never taken a picture of a guy screaming his head off. Shut up, Gus, Amy snapped. She said something else, but I didn't hear her. I dropped inside the funeral parlor with a thud, landing on my hands and knees. I waited a few seconds to catch my breath, then I climbed slowly to my feet. I jumped as the window curtains, blown by the wind, brushed against my back. The curtains wrapped around me, as if trying to hold me back. I tore them away. Blinking, struggling to see in the blackness. Can I turn on a light? I called to the window. I can't see a thing. No lights, Brad whispered. Someone might see here. He clicked on a flashlight, held it up to the window, and sent a dim beam of a light darting over the floor. Big help, I muttered to myself. I took a few steps into the room, tripped over something on the floor, fell forward, and landed on top of it. A body. Chapter 20. Oh no. I opened my mouth in a moan of horror. I rolled off it, scrambled to my feet. Please, no. I gazed down. Not a body. Some kind of duffel bag. A supply bag, maybe. I froze, struggling to catch my breath. What's wrong? Craig. David's mocking voice snapped me into action. Nothing, I called back to them. No problem. I hope they didn't notice how my voice was shaking. The circle of light from Brad's flashlight bounced around at my feet. One of the other boys clicked on another flashlight, so now 2 circles of light swirled around like mini spotlights over the floor. I squinted around the room, a long room with a low ceiling just a foot or 2 over my head. I saw 2 metal tables side by side. One of them stood bare, the other was covered by a sheet. A desk cluttered with papers, a row of filing cabinets against one wall, coils and tubes, equipment that looked as if it belonged in a hospital, and then coffins. A long row of dark wood coffins, shiny in light from the darting flashlights, coffins resting on low tables. Oh wow, I murmured. My mouth dropped open. I shielded my eyes as one of the flashlight beams rolled onto my face. Cut it out, I called angrily to the window. The first coffin, Brad instructed. Go to the first coffin. I turned and saw him pointing with the flashlight. He's wimping out, I heard Frankie say. Step back, guys. Give him room to run. He's not running, Amy said sharply. Go get him, Craig, she shouted. This is easy money. Easy for her, maybe. I stared from coffin to coffin. Could I really climb in one? What did it feel like? I wondered. What did it smell like? My heart pounding, I turned back to the window. Do I have to pull the lid closed over me? I asked, staring into the twin circles of light. Just climb in, Brad replied impatiently. Are you going to do it or not? Amy answered for me again. I turned and walked slowly up to the first coffin. The two beams of light flashed onto the green wall above it. The coffin lid was closed. Go, Craig, go, Craig, Amy chanted, urging me on. What is he waiting for? David whispered. I lowered my hands to the coffin lid. The wood felt cool and smooth. My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. Push it up and jump in, Craig, I told myself. Don't even think about it, just do it. It's no big deal at all. A coffin is just a big wooden box. It's no different from lying down on a bed. My hands left cold, wet spots on the shiny wood. The circles of light danced on the wall. I gripped the lid, took a deep breath, pushed with all my strength. The coffin lid slid open. I gazed inside and started to scream. Dark eyes stared up at me, glassy, blank eyes. I saw dark lips frozen in a sick, unnatural smile. One jagged tooth poked out over the bottom lip. The face, I couldn't really see the face clearly. It was hidden in deep shadow, but I could see deep scars across its forehead and cheeks, and I could see the dark form of the body. 2 arms crossed over the chest, lying still, so still. Was I still screaming, or had I stopped? My shrill wail still rang in my ears. Greg, what's wrong? Amy's voice rose over the sound. What is it? A corpse, I stammered, pointing with trembling finger into the coffin. I told you he'd scream, I heard Gus say. I heard the other boys snickering. Big surprise, a corpse in a funeral home. They laughed again. It isn't funny, I gasped. It's a dead body. My stomach churned. My throat tightened so hard my breath whistled. The lights lowered to the floor. I struggled to see the corpse's face. No, too dark. So do you give up? Brad demanded. He can't do it, Gus declared. We win, David cheered. We win 60 big ones. No way, Amy protested. She poked her head through the window. You can still do it, right, Craig? You can lie down in there easy, right? Huh? I choked out, my voice cracking. Lie on top of a corpse? I know you're not afraid, Amy said. Not afraid, I'm terrified. Do it, Amy urged. I turned back to the coffin outside the window. The others grew silent. I peered into the darting gray light. I gripped the side of the coffin. The sour odor of formaldehyde swirled around me. I suddenly felt sick. My stomach lurched. I leaned over the coffin. Can I do it? Can I climb in? No, I realized. No, I can't. No way. I just can't. I let go of the coffin and started to back away. I heard a groan and saw a quick gray blur. The corpse's hand. It shot up and grabbed the front of my parka. Okay, chapter 22. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out. The hand tightened its grip. The other hand grabbed on. The corpse gave a hard tug, pulling me into the coffin. No, I gasped. I tried to pull back. The corpse sat up, gripping my parka, pulling me in. The glassy eyes stared at me without blinking. The scars over the cheek and the forehead throbbed darkly. No. I gripped the corpse's wrists, tried to shove the dead hands off, but the corpse dove forward and wrapped its hands around my shoulders. It used me to pull itself up, then to pull me down into the coffin. No, the word escaped my throat in a horrified chant. No. The corpse kept pulling. My face was buried in its chest. I jerked back and fell to the floor, taking the corpse with me. Ouch, I cried out in pain as the body landed heavily on top of me. Get off, I shrieked. Before I even realized what I was doing, I was wrestling with it, rolling out from under it, pushing it away. But the corpse held on to my arms, pulled me on top of it. We wrestled frantically, rolling over and over, groaning and grunting, tugging at each other. My chest ached, my head spun. I shot up both hands, grabbed the corpse's wiry black hair, grabbed the hair, and tugged with all my strength, and pulled its head off. No, it's not. No. This is chapter 23, by the way. No. Not its head. Not a head. The scars wrinkled. The mouth with its one overhanging tooth collapsed. A mask. A rubber mask. Swallowing hard, I lowered my gaze and stared at Travis's scowling face. Travis in the coffin? Of course. Why hadn't I guessed? We stared at each other, our mouths open, chests heaving up and down, both struggling to catch our breath. I expected him to jump up, laugh, celebrate his victory. But instead he shook his head unhappily. How did you know it was me? He asked. Ceiling lights flashed on, blinking in the bright light. I turned and saw that the others had climbed in through the window. Brad picked up the ugly, scarred mask and rolled it around on his hand. Amy reached out and helped pull me to my feet. How did you know it was me? Travis demanded. Well, I felt so stunned I couldn't think. I had no idea it was Travis. I really thought a corpse had come to life. You didn't fool Craig for a minute. Amy's voice broke into my thoughts. See, you can't scare him. He's too brave. He's too smart. I don't get it, Travis murmured, still down on the floor. I thought you'd turn and run. I thought you'd run out of here screaming and never stop. I really did. Amy let out a scornful laugh. That'll be the day. She turned to the others. Pay up, losers. $60. You fought me and pulled off my mask, Travis said. He appeared to be in shock. How did you know? How? I shrugged. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't tell him the truth, that I was petrified, that I nearly died of fright. I've got to stop this crazy game, I told myself. I've got to stop Travis and Brad and Amy. But Amy's voice rang out again. So you dressed up as a corpse, a phony corpse. That was no big deal, she bragged. Craig isn't afraid of corpses. He isn't afraid of real corpses. Oh yeah? Travis replied, finally climbing to his feet. Craig will climb into a coffin with a real corpse, Amy declared. No problem. Amy, shut up, I thought. I balled my hands into tight fists. Why didn't she ever check with me first? Did she really think I could do anything? Travis narrowed his eyes at me. He brushed a ball of lint off the shoulder of my parka. Not afraid of real corpses, huh? He said, studying me. Well, I started. Okay, we'll see about that, Travis said. No, I stammered. Travis turned to Amy. One last bet, he told her. Craig's final challenge. I hated the way he said final. Double or nothing. Travis added, we'll meet you back here real soon. Chapter 24. The next night I paced back and forth in my room and practiced my speech to Amy. This has to stop. I don't want a final challenge. I can't take one more dare. I really can't take it. I said the words out loud. I repeated my speech again and again until I knew every word by heart. Maybe, I thought, if I tell her the truth, Amy will finally listen to me. If I stop pretending and let her know the truth about me, I know she'll stop bragging about me, and I can live a normal, peaceful, safe life. I ran through the speech one more time, then I picked up the phone and punched in Amy's number. She picked up after the third ring. Hi, it's me, I said. My whole body felt tense and tight, but I didn't care. In a few minutes, I hoped my nightmare would be over. Craig, what did you get for the third math problem? She asked. I don't want to talk about math now, I replied. I never want to talk about math, she explained. But I need help with the third problem. I sighed and I dropped down onto the edge of my bed. Listen, I have to tell you something, I said. Silence for a moment. Are you okay? She asked finally. You sound so serious. I need to tell you something, I repeated. Okay, shoot, she replied. I took a deep breath and started my speech. I'm not brave, I announced. Excuse me? I'm not brave, Amy. I've been terrified ever since I moved to Middle Valley. Craig, I saw how brave you are. Remember? Amy interrupted. I saw you risk your life to rescue that baby in the car. I saw you climb that tree to save the little boy and rescue that bird's nest, and it was all an accident, I insisted. Please, let me finish. I took another deep breath, confessing the truth was hard, but I had to do it. You know, when Travis said I used to be called Craig, it's true. That's what kids called me. At my old school, they called me Craig because I was a total wimp, and I still am, Amy. Silence at the end of her line. I could hear her breathing, but she didn't say a word. All of these dares, I continued, they're scaring me to death. I can't take it anymore. That's why I'm finally telling you the truth. I want you to call off the bet, call the whole thing off. I sighed. I'm too scared, I really am. Call off the bet, okay? Okay? Silence again at Amy's end. Finally, I thought. I finally got through to her. Craig, you're such a nice person, she said finally. Excuse me? Nice? You're the nicest guy I've ever met, she gushed. It's just so nice of you to worry about Travis and Brad. I swallowed hard. Huh? What are you talking about, Amy? I know why you said all that, Amy replied. You don't think Travis and Brad can afford to lose $120, and you don't want to embarrass them. That's so nice of you. But, I sputtered. So that's why you're pretending to be afraid, she continued. You don't want them to lose all that money. That's so nice of you. I can't believe it. I took another deep breath. So you'll cancel the bet, I asked hesitantly. Of course not, she replied. We're going ahead with it, Craig. They deserve to be taught a lesson. But I can't climb into a coffin with a real corpse, I whined. Amy laughed. Of course you can. I know it's no big deal. Stop pretending. I've got to go. My dad is yelling for me to finish my math. Bye. I heard a loud click. The line went dead. I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the phone in my hand. It's no use, I muttered out loud. Amy won't believe me. She won't believe that I'm a total coward, no matter what I say. I've got to do something to stop this, I told myself. But what? The phone rang in my hand. I jumped up and dropped it to the floor. Even a ringing phone scares me, I thought. Why won't Amy believe me? What am I going to do? I picked up the phone. Hello, Amy. No. It's me, Brad. Oh, hi, I said. Are you having trouble with the third math problem too? Brad didn't answer my question. It's tomorrow night, Craig, he said in a low, sullen voice. My heart started to pound. I nearly dropped the phone again. Excuse me? Travis says to meet at the same place, Brad replied, at the funeral parlor tomorrow night. Chapter 25. Amy and I walked through the clear, cool night. A pale silver of a moon floated low over the rooftops against a great blue sky. The trees stood silent and still. We met Travis at his friend's house, outside Travis's house. Then we let Travis lead the way to his father's funeral parlor. Frankie and Gus tossed a tennis ball back and forth as we walked. Gus kept missing it and having to chase it over the dark front lawns. Travis, Brad, and David all wore solemn expressions. They mean business tonight, I told myself. Do you guys really have $120 to lose? Amy called to them. Sure, Dad replied. There are 5 of us, so we don't have to chip in that much. Travis again spun around and started walking backwards. Do you have the money? He challenged Amy. We don't need any money, Amy replied sharply. We're not going to lose. She clapped me on the back. Craig and I only have one problem. What's that? Travis demanded. How to spend all that money, Amy exclaimed. Travis scowled and spun back around. Well, see, he muttered. Hey, no tricks tonight, I asked. No one popping out of a coffin in a silly Halloween costume. No tricks tonight, Travis replied. We don't need any tricks, Craig. There's a real corpse in there. David bumped me off the sidewalk. Are you terrified yet? He asked, grinning. Tell the truth. Are you, Greg? Amy lowered her shoulder and bumped David. He is twice her size, but she knocked him off the curb and sent him sprawling into the street. Craig isn't even going to answer that question, she sneered. We stopped at the hedge behind the parking lot. The funeral parlor stood dark and silent as it had the other night. But tonight, no rain and no wind. Everything was still, eerily still, still as death. Following Travis, we made our way to the back window. Our shoes scraping over the asphalt parking lot was the only sound. We stepped into the deep darkness behind the building. Travis raised both hands and slid the window up easily. He motioned for me to climb in first. I hesitated. Is there really a corpse in there? I asked in a trembling voice. Travis nodded. Yes, a real corpse. How many times do I have to tell you? He was delivered this morning. Still fresh, Gus joked. But no one laughed. I remembered the last time we came here. I remembered the big plastic bag delivered by the 2 men in the van. I shuddered. I tried to imagine what a dead body looked like, what it felt like. Travis glanced behind us tensely. Come on, hurry, Craig. Get in before someone sees us. He gave me a boost onto the window ledge. Come on, it's showtime. I took one last glance back at my friends. Am I really doing this? I asked myself. Then I uttered a sigh, turned, and lowered myself into the building. Chapter 26. The sharp, sour smell of formaldehyde greeted me once again. I covered my nose and tried to breathe through my mouth. I heard a scrambling behind me, the thud of shoes on the floor. The others climbed through the window. Travis clicked on a ceiling light and dimmed it. I squinted around the gray room. The dim light cast long, eerie shadows over the floor like dark pools. I had the sudden feeling that if I stepped into one, I'd sink and never be seen again. I shook that thought away and took a few steps toward the row of coffins. The lids were all shut. The polished wood glowed under the pale ceiling light. I felt a hand squeeze my shoulder. I turned to find Travis grinning at me. What's your problem? I demanded. A mocking smile spread over his freckled face. A little tense. Craig. I didn't answer. I stared at the row of coffins. I decided to give you a break, Travis said, still squeezing my shoulder. Excuse me, I replied. A break? He nodded. I know you're terrified. We don't want to scare you to death. Some of the others laughed. Big joke. So you don't have to climb in with the old guy, Travis continued, guiding me to a coffin in the middle of the row. You just have to shake his hand and then give him a nice cheek-to-cheek hug. I rolled my eyes. Oh, wow, thanks for the break. Hug a corpse? Travis grinned at me. If you just want to pay us the money and forget about it. No way, Amy broke between us, shoving Travis's hand off my shoulder. This is too easy, too easy. Travis stepped up to the side of the coffin. Okay, whatever you say. He motioned for Red to help him. The two of them grabbed the coffin lid and slid it up. I gasped as the old man's body came into view. I'd never seen a dead person before. He lay on his back in a black suit, white shirt, and dark tie. His arms stretched stiffly at his sides, hands clenched into chalk-white fists. He had wispy white hair brushed straight back over a speckled forehead. His eyes were closed. His lips appeared to be lipsticked red. His skin was kind of orange, not real looking at all. Not a joke this time, I realized. I staring down wide-eyed at him. He isn't going to sit up and grab my jacket. He's really dead. I leaned over the coffin. Could I shake his hand? Could I hug him? Go ahead, Amy urged. No problem, right, Craig? I guess, I stammered. David laughed. He pointed at me. Look at Craig. He's shaking. Look at him. Frankie and Gus laughed too. Brad stood down at the end of the coffin, near the old guy's feet, chewing his bottom lip nervously. The corpse's black shoes glowed like new under the ceiling light. Shake his hand, Travis ordered. Go ahead, if you can. I swallowed hard. I couldn't take my eyes off the orange face, the speckled forehead, the bright lipstick lips. Give up, Travis demanded. Can't do it. I'm doing it, I insisted. I took a deep breath and I held it. Then I started to lower my right hand into the coffin. I shut my eyes. Am I really doing this? Am I really going to touch a dead man? Yes. I opened my eyes and wrapped my fingers around the white fist. Yuck. The hand felt so hard and cold. It didn't feel like a hand. It felt like a stone. Shake, Travis ordered. I shook the hand once, twice. Oh, I dropped it and jumped back. The guys all laughed. Craig did it, Amy declared. You lose, Travis. I shook my right hand hard, trying to shake away the touch of the corpse. He isn't finished. It's hug time. Travis said, You don't win unless you give the guy a hug. David chimed in. My stomach did a major flip-flop. You have to hug him cheek to cheek, Travis insisted. Oh, wow. How gross. I have to press my face against that cold orange skin. Craig has no problem with that, Amy declared. Show them, Craig. Thanks for all the support, Amy, I thought tenderly. Bitterly. I wouldn't be in this mess if it wasn't for you. They were all staring at me, watching, waiting. I had no choice. I had to hug the corpse. I turned to the coffin. I leaned over the side and started to lower my hands toward the old man. A loud creaking sound made me stop. I stood straight up and heard another creak. I turned to my friends. Their faces were staring wide-eyed. They heard it too. What is that? I whispered. Another creak. I glanced down the row of coffins and saw a coffin lid move, and then another, all down the row. The coffins were slowly opening. Chapter 27. I let out a cry and staggered back against the wall. Gazing across the room, I saw hands pushing the lids up from inside the coffins. Swollen red hands, bruised purple hands, pale hands, white as flour. We've disturbed the dead, I shrieked. The lids stood straight up to the coffin next to us. I heard an ugly hoarse groan. A green-skinned corpse sat up, turning its decayed head. It tried to open its eyes, but they were soon shut. The room filled with the throaty groans and sighs like air escaping from tires. Another coffin lid lurched open. A corpse with a yellowed, rotting face began to lower itself heavily from its coffin. Another corpse lurched to a sitting position across from him. I gasped as I saw the white worms wriggling out from his nostrils. No, Travis opened his mouth in a howl of horror. This is impossible, David shrieked. We disturbed them, I wailed. We all screamed as a closet door swung open. The door slammed hard against the wall, and hideous corpses fell out, staggering like sleepwalkers, eyes sewn shut, their skin splotchy, falling off their gray skulls, arms outstretched. They moved so stiffly, groaning from deep in their caved-in chests as they staggered across the room toward us. Amy screamed. Travis and Brad backed up beside me, their mouths open, eyes wide. I heard another gasping groan and turned to see a corpse drop to the floor. His head was covered in a floppy, wide-brimmed hat. He wore a huge trench coat, many sizes too big for him. With another groan, he pulled himself up and began staggering toward us. As he lurched forward, the hat tilted back. We screamed as his face came into view. Half a face? Only half a face? Gray skin stretched over bone? A dead mouse clinging to his empty eye socket? No! We all howled in horror, but our cries were drowned out by the deep, ugly groans, the gasping breaths, the hissing sighs. A tall purple-skinned corpse led the others, head bowed, eyes sewn shut. He pulled one leg forward, and then the other. Suddenly he stopped. I let out a cry as his left hand fell off. It hit the floor with a soft plop and bounced under one of the lab tables. The corpse paused for only a second, then came lurching blindly towards us once again. "Let's get out of here," Gus screamed, his face twisted in panic. Too late. They had us cornered. They had us backed against the wall. I glanced at the old man, the only corpse that didn't rise up. Shuffling their heavy shoes over the floor, the corpses moved closer, closer. "Craig, do something," Amy shrieked. "Huh?" I gasped. "Me?" "Stop them," Travis cried, shoving me forward. "Craig, you can do it. You're the only brave one here." "I am?" I choked out. "Yes, you win the bet," Travis cried in a trembling voice. He was so frightened, so pale, all his freckles had disappeared. "You win, you win," Travis declared. "Just drop them. Stop them. Do something." "But what can I do?" I stammered in a tiny voice, my whole body trembling. "Do something," Amy wailed. "You have to save us." She gave me a hard shove. I stumbled forward, and a tall corpse dove forward and wrapped its rotting arms around my waist. Chapter 28. Let go, I shrieked. I squirmed and struggled, but the green-skinned corpse, eyes sewn tight, maggot-infested hair down over its rotting face, grasped me even tighter. I heard the others screaming. I looked up and saw them running, flying to the back window. David reached the window first. He dove through it and vanished outside. The corpse wrapped its clammy hands around me at my waist. It grunted in my ear, its sour breath tingling my skin. Gus and Frankie scrambled over each other, squeezing themselves out the window at the same time. Travis vanished too. Amy followed. Brad dove out head first. "Come back," I gasped. It won't let go. Come back." "Wait," I heard Amy cry. "Hey, wait. We can't leave Craig in there." "We'll get help," I heard Travis promise, his voice shrill with panic. "We'll call the police." With a hard tug, I pulled myself free of the corpse's grin. I scrambled to the window and peered outside, and watched them all run across the parking lot. Run full speed, running away in total horror. I waited for about half an hour, then I walked to Brad's house. He must have been watching for me out the window. He pulled open the front door before I rang the bell. "That was awesome," he exclaimed. I slapped him a high five. "Yeah, awesome. Thanks for helping me, Brad," I said. We both started to laugh. We slapped each other another high five. I followed Brad into his living room. Your brother and his friends were excellent corpses, I declared. They scared everyone to death. I laughed. Even I almost believed them. They looked so perfect, Brad agreed. All that disgusting green and purple makeup on their faces, the way they staggered with their eyes shut. His smile suddenly faded. Hey, don't ever tell Travis I helped you with this, he said. No way, I promised. I just thought enough was enough, Brad explained. It was getting to be too mean. Time to end once and for all. I owed you one for helping me with Grant in school the other day. Okay, guys, I just had to let my dog back in because my kid's toy just started going off. And there's only one toy that really does that, and it's not that one. I think you might have heard it. So I'm freaking myself out. Decided to bring my dog back in. So if you hear her paws and her laying down, she's a big German Shepherd. So let's continue with the book, okay? All right. It was getting too mean. Time to end once and for all. Besides, I owed you one for helping me with Grant in school the other day. Yeah, I'm glad it's over, I sighed. I dropped onto the couch. Be sure to tell Grant thanks, okay? And tell him to thank his friends, too. Brad chuckled. Grant loves to scare people. He said, I didn't have to ask him twice. Maybe we can all relax now and just be friends, I said. I didn't finish because Grant came striding into the room. Hey, Grant, I started. Grant frowned at me. Sorry, my friends and I couldn't make it tonight, he said. Chapter 29. Huh? Brad and I both gasped. But, I sputtered, what do you mean? Brad demanded shrilly. Grant shook his head. My friends and I, we showed up at the funeral parlor, but the doors were all locked. No way to get in, so we left. Huh? You left? I cried. Grant nodded. Yeah, there didn't seem to be anyone there, so we left and went out for pizzas. But I sputtered again. You mean... Brad suddenly looked very pale. The corpses? Hope I didn't mess up your plans, Grant said. Can we try again tomorrow night? Brad uttered a low moan. I feel sick, he exclaimed. I'm gonna puke. He clapped both hands over his mouth and flew out the room. Grant turned to me. What's his problem? The corpses, I murmured. They walked. Chapter 30. Then Grant and I burst out laughing. We both dropped onto the couch, giggling. We got Brad too, I exclaimed happily. He deserved it. He thought he was helping me out tonight, but I had to pay him back too. Grant laughed till he had tears in his eyes. Hey, anytime I can scare my little brother and his creep friends, just let me know. Well, you guys did a great job, I told him. It was fun, Grant replied. Did you see Brad's face go pale just now? He really believed my friends and I didn't show up at the funeral parlor. He really believed the corpses came to life. Good thing Brad didn't notice this, I said. I pointed to a glob of green makeup caught behind Grant's ear. He forgot to wash off a chunk. I left the rubber hand at the funeral parlor, too, Grant grumbled. I'll have to go back tomorrow and get it. That hand comes in handy, haha. That's a joke, get it? We laughed some more. I felt like jumping up and down, whooping at the top of my lungs. I left the house, still chuckling. What a great night, I said. I paid everyone back for torturing me, even Amy. My plan worked perfectly. The dares were over, no more challenges, no more kids calling me Craig. I turned the corner and headed for home. Heavy clouds covered the sky. Somewhere down the block, a dog howled, but I wasn't scared. I was Craig, the hero. Craig, the superhero. I knew I'd never be scared again. I only wished the moon would come out. Why did it have to be so dark? So that is the end of this book, I believe. And it kind of goes into, I guess, what would be number 10, which is the Headless Halloween. So I'll have to be on the lookout for that. These books look like they weren't expensive originally. $3.99 in the US. And I got it for $1.99, so really I didn't save that much, but it wasn't bad. Kinda, I don't think R.L. Stein really meant to be as creepy as, like, since it's for kids, like Stephen King and all of them, so. But anyways, so this is the end of that book, and I have a couple more, but they're not in order. So I'm gonna try to see what else I can find. If you have any requests for books, let me know. Or if you have any requests for any kind of ASMR video in general, let me know. Let me know if you like this microphone. Let me know how this sounds, because I uploaded a video with this, and I'll be getting a regular mic guard to try to drown out some of the other sounds that go on in my house right now. Alright, so I hope you all enjoyed that story. Are you terrified yet? And I hope you have a good night. Sleep tight.